On today's episode, Liz and I have a great discussion with Wendy Wang, who works as the Director of Research for the Institute for Family Studies. She shares some fascinating insights and research findings related to one of the hottest topics out right now, AI and relationships. We have an insightful discussion about the potential risks and harms of AI-based companionship, as well as the challenges of pornography and technology in relationships. Wendy R. Wang is the Director of Research at the Institute for Family Studies and an expert on demographic trends, marriage, family, and well-being. Passionate about helping disadvantaged young adults succeed, Dr. Wang's research sheds light on critical social issues. She regularly contributes op-eds and commentary to major media outlets, including the New York Times, The Atlantic, The Wall Street Journal, National Review, Deseret News, and the Daily Mail. Her work is frequently cited in national media. Previously, Dr. Wang served as a senior researcher at the Pew Research Center, where she led the landmark report, Breadwinner Moms, among other influential Pew studies. She holds a PhD in sociology from the University of Maryland. We hope you enjoy the show. Hey there, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Stronger Marriage Connection podcast. I'm Dr. Dave here at Utah State University alongside Dr. Liz Hale. We are bringing you the very best that we have in research and resources, along with a few tips and tools to help you create the marriage of your dreams. All this today, it's a deep dive. One of the hottest topics around today has to be artificial intelligence, or AI. People of all ages are exploring it. They're using it in virtually every aspect of their lives. Our children, our adult children, they don't even Google anymore. Is that crazy? They just go straight to AI with everything, including relationships. So today we're diving into a discussion with Wendy Wang from the Institute for Family Studies. I'm really looking forward to our discussion. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dave and Liz. This is very exciting for me.
Yeah, thrilled to have you on. Wendy, you have written numerous articles about marriage, parenting, family structure, and so much more. I'm anxious to jump right in and ask you about some things in some of your articles. Today we'll use as the basis for our discussion. Your November 2024 report entitled AI and Relationships. And it says 1 in 4 young adults believe AI partners could replace real life romance. Kate.
Yeah, yikes, right?
Startling, stunning to me. You found that 25% of young adults believe AI could replace real life relationships. From your view, is that belief more a symptom or a catalyst of deeper shifts in how younger generations think about intimacy and commitment?
I know AI is big these days. When we did the survey, which was in November 2024, it's almost 2 years ago. It was still a new thing. Now, with 2 years passing, I can see a lot more people probably turning to AI for romantic relationships. Especially now, you hear recently Elon Musk was talking about by the end of this year, AI is going to be smarter than any human being. So it's frightening. So back to your question about symptom or catalyst, I think it's both. And, because we know that young people have already turned to online for their, to find a partner. So, the online dating is the default way for young people to find a spouse these days. Multiple survey has confirmed that. And so as you spend more time online, and it's easier, when to turn to an AI, because that's just kind of extension of the online relationships. And then the interesting thing is the more time you spend online, and the more likely you will be staying there and avoiding real life relationships, because you kind of lost the interpersonal relationship skills. And so that's why I think these two things are feeding each other.
Man, it just it startles me so much. I'm curious, what does that say about the durability of marriage norms going forward? What does this look like?
Well, I'm sure you guys probably have heard stories of people getting married with AI, a couple of stories last year. That was interesting to hear. I don't know so far any government has approved like this type of marriage. I think it was just some ceremony that they want to do. But I sure don't hope that become a norm for marriage. And so that, yeah, so I don't think that's a real relationship. That's a real marriage.
Yeah, either do I.
Let's hope not, right? My goodness. I mean, this just reminds me just a little bit of the role that pornography's had, right? Some men, women turning to pornography or that online viewing to kind of fill that romantic or fill that need for connection, quote unquote. I don't know. So it's just a step further down the road, it seems like. But Wendy, we're curious, given that some of these adults in this study are open to these AI friends or even romantic partners, even goodness, a marriage. Some are already using them, obviously. What kinds of risks or harms do you foresee for those individuals who might turn to the AI-based companionship instead of true human intimacy? Like, for example, we've got emotional disconnection, right? And unrealistic expectations of a partner or decreased willingness to invest in a relationship. It's a lot of work. Yeah. I don't think you can ever do that with AI.
I think there's a lot of consequences of this, because we already know from previous studies that the longer you spend time online, the more likely you will be depressed and then, anxious, and with a host of all these mental health indicators. But I think the biggest problem with AI is that people are creating this unrealistic expectations, and AI is actually meeting those expectations. It's a perfect partner because you can talk to AI and she or he, and whatever you want to call your AI partner, will meet every single desire of yours and will think you're just amazing. You're like the best person in the world, like the perfect partner. You're like just perfect. So that kind of thing doesn't exist in real life. We know that, and nobody's perfect. But you already create that in your mind, and then AI is reinforcing you with this concept. So I think the biggest risk is really this making it harder for young people to actually find a real partner in life, because there's no one in the world will be like the AI partner.
Mm-hmm. And it just takes them further and further away from being out socializing, right?
Yes.
I mean, absolutely. You can pay someone online to also respond the way you want to, right? It can be another face, but you're paying that person, going back to pornography and online connections that, again, are not real. They're not intimate. Oh, gosh. It kind of breaks my heart. I know what it's like to be single a long time. And it's not easy. And I remember some of those feelings of desperation, putting some money down on a dating site that then went out of business. My heart aches for people. I think loneliness is just so painful.
Yeah. You just remind me of something I was watching on TV. And this is a documentary about the scammers. So the scammers are using AI to target on these this is mostly older women. And then they're like portray them as this perfect partner. So as, this is a scam thing. And those women actually fell for it. And then they thought this is the love of my life. They send the money to these people. Actually, they call, like, there's a name there. And then this person, actually, they use somebody's online pictures to create this image of this person that they fell in love with. It's crazy. People send millions of dollars. I'm just saying, since we're talking about this, I do think the scamming is another aspect of this.
Yeah. Yes, because it feeds on that loneliness, that feeling, right, of so wanting to be connected, that human nature need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wendy, I'm curious, do you see the rise of AI companionship intersecting, I guess, in ways with other existing trends, right? We mentioned pornography, social isolation, online dating, which has been a thing for, at least a few decades, in ways that could further challenge, I guess, long-term relationships.
I do think this AI trend is similar to, like we already talked about online dating. and also pornography, both. Because, the online dating exposed people to a wide range of partners. And then it seems to be a great opportunity because all of a sudden could be connected to millions of people in the world. You can date anybody. But then that creates this thing called information overload, selection. It's really hard to actually pick the one who you may have a connection with. And also, once you pick the person, the other person also has thousands of options. So they might not connect with you. So this whole thing really make this dating thing harder, and it actually delays this whole process. And so it's harder for you. It's taking a longer time for you to do that. So yeah, that's what I see, like, this technology, how technology affects our relationships.
Ah, goodness. Well, we're grateful for the work that you're doing in this field. It's really helping all of us. Just assuming that AI companionship becomes more socially acceptable, or it's going to be more mainstream, regardless of how acceptable it might be. What strategies could couples or therapists, educators, marriage ministries use to protect marital intimacy and commitment from erosion? In other words, how can couples future-proof their relationship in a world where AI is competing for emotional and sexual attention?
So I think the important thing is to have a house rule about how you want to use these devices at your home. I think, a lot of we access AI through our phones and, computers. So I think it's important to create that time, say, dinner time, no phone, or, every time, every day spend like 30 minutes or 2-3 hours, whatever time that fits your own household. And we set that time to be phone free, technology free.
Like that. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Always good.
Yeah, I love it.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
Wendy, from your perspective, as someone who deeply, steeped in this demographic research for years, are there class or socioeconomic divides, and who's more likely to turn to AI companionship? And if so, could that lead to a widening marriage divide along class lines over time?
Mm-hmm. So we already know that there is a marriage divide along the education and income lines, because we know the people with, less education, lower income are less likely to get married today. But 50 years ago, the marriage rate was about the same across these, education and income lines. And unfortunately, through our data, we find that the people who have, lower education, again, lower income, are actually more likely to be open to AI relationships. Because in the survey, and they told us the more of, the people in this group are saying that they're open to having AI as their partner, compared to people with higher, SES. And, when we did the survey, like college educated folks are most likely to say that they won't want to have AI as a partner. So, which is quite interesting, because I can see that this adds to the existing difficulties for these, the less advantaged group to find a partner and form a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. That is interesting. That divide still holds true. Yeah. With AI.
Yeah.
So education matters.
Yeah, it is interesting. I was just talking to a colleague, and he was doing a focus group among the men without college degree, so working class men. It's surprising to know that a lot of these men have never actually have a date. So we're talking about young adult men in their 20s and 30s. So it is troubling.
That would be a very vulnerable group indeed, right?
Yeah.
For something like AI relationships. Oh,
yeah.
So, Wendy, your article, Why Americans Aren't Getting Married and Having Kids and How to Change That, argues that many single adults delay or forego marriage, not primarily because of money or careers, but because they believe it's hard to find the right person. So given that AI companions might present low commitment, low risk, emotional alternative, and they're ideal, they're perfect, do you worry that this could exacerbate the marriage delay culture?
Absolutely. Like I said, the whole online dating already delay young adults to form a marriage relationships. And the new thing about AI is I worry is actually going to replace the potential partner they're seeking. Because, when you go online, you still wanted to find a partner. And now AI is your partner. So, and it's a perfect partner. And they can meet all your emotional desires. So I fear that this will not only delay marriage, but forego marriage.
Yeah, I'm afraid so too. I mean, at least with online dating, you have real people, right? And online dating is a racket. I'm telling you, I was on it and I would get off, I'd hop back on and then you just have to take breaks. Most of my friends who are in that, I think, would agree. It's difficult and you get your heart broken even without meeting someone. And it's just not easy in any realm. But at least you're dealing with real humans. And in AI, it's a whole different ballgame now. Now we're really going to get stuck on falling in love with someone that's not even truly there.
Well, in a sense, you're falling in love with yourself. That's how I see it. Because you're creating this perfect person for yourself and you can just okay, this is all what I want and give all the list. AI can create this and you're like, okay, you can start talking to this person. This is the person. Finished. And you don't even need to go dating anymore. That's the easiest thing. I think that's again, this going back to another thing that we talk about in relationships and relationship needs work. But people don't want to avoid all these work and they just want to go to the outcome, to skip all this process of working. So that's the problem. Yeah.
If I'm going to create someone, Dave and Wendy, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot better than me. Am I going to make somebody up? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Wendy, now shifting to another piece, you've written so many articles. I want to make sure we get a couple more of these. I read it's entitled More Scrolling, More Marital Problems. I love the title, by the way. When people hear stats like, phones are hurting marriages, it can sound abstract almost. But based on the data in this article, what do you see as the actual relational mechanisms at work here? How specifically does smartphone use translate into lower marital satisfaction, less intimacy, greater risk for divorce in everyday married life?
Yeah, just like you said, phone is everywhere these days in your household. And this past Christmas holiday, my in-laws are with us. And I just see everyone have a phone, looking at the phone, and also the TV is on. So it's like nobody is talking. So what we're doing here. It's common, but I was really interested in how common it is, that's why we did this survey. And we asked about 2,000 married adults, ages 18 to 55. The question is is there a time that, your spouse is always on the phone or a screen when you want to talk or do something together? 37% of the married adults say yes. So basically more than a third of the couples have this issue. This is actually a constant issue. That the phone is, they always get distracted by the phone. And also when we do the analysis, you find that the people who have this problem are more likely to report lower marital satisfaction, and then they have less sex and less date nights too. So that's all these related factors.
There's many things that can come between us, right? That inanimate object is one of them. And then not to mention what's inside the phone or what we're reading and searching and AIing.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
If a couple is listening right now and they're thinking, oh my gosh, that's us. Our phones are always coming between us. What would you say is the first meaningful change that they could make that would actually begin restoring connection, not just reducing screen time?
So in that article, we have a few, I wouldn't say guidelines, just suggestions and tips for couples. And, I also thought about a few things that actually work for myself. I think it's just, first of all, you do want to create a routine, a phone-free zone. Whatever, however fits your own household, you can do as little as 30 minutes. Just create this time to talk to your spouse and no phone, and not allowing the person to be on the phone when you're talking. And, this could be dinner time, all that. So I'm saying have a zone, like a phone-free time zone. And number two, I also think we need to have a digital boundaries set up. And for some couples, that's just no phone in the bedroom. You don't just, read, on your phone. Phone is the last thing you see before you go to bed. The first thing you connect when you wake up. That's a lot of us. And so if you say, okay, I'm not allowing the phone be in my bedroom, I think that's a win already. And also, since we're talking about AI, I think we should set up a rule of saying, okay, we will never use AI for companionship. You don't vent to AI. If you have a marital, I'm mad at my husband, I don't go to AI for comfort. So I think that's something we should set up a rule, say, don't go there. That's a boundary. And also, I think we need to be smart in naming our devices. And this is interesting, as my daughter's bedroom has a Alexa, because, unfortunately, we all have Alexas in every room. And, when I talked to her about all these things, and she named her Alexa as computer. So she just intentionally, separate this with, a human being. She said, oh, this is a computer. So now her Alexa is a computer. Whenever she call Alexa for the weather or whatever, she says, computer, can you tell me what's the weather today? So oh, this is smart. This is great. So I think we need to be intentionally identifying these devices from the real human being, because if we already name the devices our friends, like best friend's name or whatever name, I think it's easier for us to develop this connection with the AI or the device.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Computer, I love that. Very wise.
Wendy, about even relationship advice, what's your take on asking, instead of maybe going to a therapist or someone just chats in, I'm really struggling with this or that. Can you give me some tips on how to better communicate with my husband or save money on, whatever it is? Where's kind of the line? Is that a little fuzzy for you as far as asking for relationship help? Does that make sense?
Yes. I have to say, you guys are relationship experts. I'm the researcher here. So I do some data analysis, and I asked my husband, about this question. It's what will help couples? He said that don't take things too seriously. I thought it was interesting. And when he said that, and then I was thinking, for me, I want to say, just be patient. Be patient with your spouse, because that's something I am trying to overcome in my own life. Because I just I'm short and I'm just not really. We are working. We also have to take care of the kids. There's just a lot of things, and so I feel like we tend to be, not that patient towards our spouse. So I think that's probably important area to think about. when it comes to relationships.
Yeah, you bet.
And there's such good information out there, right? Like the sources of Stronger Marriage Connection, Utah State's. Dave, what was that called? What is this?
We have strongermarriage.org that has
Strongermarriage.org, of course.
Yeah, Healthy Relationships Utah is another one. Yeah.
So many good places to go to.
I want to go back to the AI too, and how this relates to AI. Because I feel like the AI is really fill a void. So if we have problems in our relationships, we tend to go to AI, go to the device, and whether it's pornography, video games, or whatever, that to fill that void, that we use that. So I think if we can strengthen our relationships between husband and wife, family members, and then we just don't give that void. We don't have the void for the AI to take place. I think that's probably the best strategy. So if we can keep our relationship strong, there is no room for AI.
That's a great point. Maybe just having that a rule that I'm not going to be turning to AI. Right? It's not going to be my best resource of information. Yeah, it's eerily helpful. If you've ever taken an issue to AI, it's a girlfriend of mine was saying that. She had a little tiff with her sister, and she goes, "It's eerily helpful. It's kind of odd. It kind of sucks you in a little bit." And I thought, that is so true. I think that's just part of the attraction of it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think some of the line is, as my mind has been mulling through our discussion today, it feels like that Wendy has pointed out, almost the line is the emotional, right? The emotional connection with anything that's artificial, because you're right, it feeds you whatever you want to hear. Yeah. And it'll support your opinion and your views, and it just backs you up. So that feels like the line is like the emotional, like, what do I turn to it when I need a boost or my confidence or motivation or anything else? It feels like that's that emotional connection. What do you two think?
Yeah, so I do think the emotional is the biggest part here, because it's not physical. I mean, there will be robots coming up soon. They're real human robots, and so, but right now we're staying at ChatGPT and AI. What they call it, generative AI. They call that. So before we get there, it is emotional. I do think it's, the emotional connection. It's kind of like porn, yeah, but not there. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we do. I remember during that the AI brief you mentioned, we did research on who are more likely to be open to AI. So the young adults who are use pornography more often are more likely to say they are open to AI relationships.
It makes perfect sense. They're already doing something like that, artificial, if you will. So it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe it's even more concerning than pornography. I don't know. Pornography is not good. I'm not saying that, but I don't know. I'll have to think some more about that. Wendy, you've written some really impactful articles. Can you share more about where our listeners can learn more about you and your work and read some of these things?
Mm-hmm. So website, the Institute for Family Studies website is a great source for all my work, and the website is ifstudies.org.
Ifstudies.org.
Yeah, ifstudies.org. I'm also on X and former Twitter. So my handle is at Wendy R. Wang.
Okay, and we'll put those notes on our site for easy viewing at the end of this particular segment.
Yeah, we'll put those up.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
Wonderful. Wendy, as we wrap up, we like to ask all of our guests a couple of questions. The first one, in honor of the name of our podcast, Stronger Marriage Connection, is what do you feel? From your research, your experience, what do you feel like is a key to a stronger marriage connection?
I do think for me, the patience part, being a wife. the patience and the generosity, it's the most important element for a successful marriage. And I wrote an article previously about 50-50 marriage. And I think a lot of modern women today that, they already have a job and, they're making money to contribute. So they feel like in the household, it needs to be a 50-50 split as well. So in that article, I kind of criticized this approach. And I feel like, the marriage is not a business transaction. It's not like, okay, you contributed this, I contributed to that. It's not that. So it's a commitment. So the commitment requires no return. So we should treat the marriage as it is a commitment. So we should, serve each other without expecting things in return. So that would be something that I value. And I also try to, talk to anyone who's asking me about the secret of a successful marriage. I think that might be it.
I like that. Very wise word. Yeah, to serve, to love, to help, to lift without expectation of, I'm going to get my 50%. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Thanks, Wendy. And then the second question is simply a kind of a closeout question from our discussion today. We call it a takeaway of the day. Do you have a take-home message that you'd love our listeners to remember from our discussion today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my take-home is we're living in an age that technology is developing so fast. There are new things every day. It just creates more and more distractions for us and from the real relationships. So I'm hoping that we can focus on the real relationship, the core relationships between husband and the wife. And, we can make stronger families, and stronger families, the foundation of a stronger society. So that's where I want us to land.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, Liz, what about you? What's your take-home message?
This reminds me, it just reminds me all over again of the need for having really good friends who will tell me the truth, right? I was thinking of a conversation I had last night with a dear friend from almost 40 years now. And we've been through a lot together, and I was updating her on something, some feedback I got that was just, kind of painful. And what I loved most about this dear friend is she gave me the truth. She gave me the truth. She took my side, and then she also said, I wonder, you might want to think about this. And I loved that. I'm not going to get that from AI, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that outside of our marriage, I think we really need good friends who support us, good friends who stand for our marriage and are going to be honest, unconditionally loving, that they're wise. What about you, Dave? What's your greatest takeaway from our interview today with Wendy Wang?
Yeah, my mind's kind of blown with this whole area. It just happened. It feels like it's happening so fast. Just like, a couple of years, right? And all this is happening. I can't imagine that the next decade, for example, of what this is going to be like. But Wendy, I think that you mentioned a word early on that I just really resonated, and that was this: we have to be intentional. This idea of kind of waking up, right? We have to be intentional, not just going with the flow of all this, because this mindless just going with it all, it's like nothing matters. But when we intentionally create boundaries, or maybe date nights, right? I'm putting my phone away or down and connecting, giving whoever I'm with my all in attention, and not being distracted from the electronics, technoference, or AI, and not going too far down any of these rabbit holes intentionally. So that's the word that really stood out to me, Wendy. So thank you for bringing that up. That really resonates.
Thank you. This is a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Well, that does it for us, friends. We're so grateful that you joined us. Thanks again, Wendy, for coming on and sharing the latest and greatest and research. And you've done so much good there with the Institute for Family Studies. So that's it. And we will see you next time on another episode of Stronger Marriage Connection podcast.
And remember, it's the small things that create a stronger marriage connection. Take care now.
Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.